Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the realest Christian talk show on all of the internet. This is Bloom, the podcast, and the first episode of 2021. How you doing?
I'm doing pretty bomb.
I am your host. For those of you who are new here, my name is Donovan, and our bomb co-host here, this is Ashley.
What's up?
And I want to thank you all so much for joining us in a new year. We have a lot to offer this year. We're so excited. We're pumped. We're jazzed to be back recording in the Bloom studio. And we have so many ideas of things we want to talk about and things we want to implement into the show. So I hope you guys all stick around to find out. Even in this episode, we have a couple new things we're going to be doing. So make sure you stick around to the very end to see all of those new things. But jumping right into it is going to be our first new thing, and that's our first new segment, the Bloom Moment of the Week. And on this segment, me and Ashley are going to be telling you guys a little bit about what we've been learning this week, whether it be in our Bible reading, just in life in general, what the Lord's been showing us lately. So I'll pass it over to you first, actually. What is your Bloom moment for this week?
So it kind of has to do with what I mentioned in my New Year's resolutions, but kind of changing up my morning routine to help me get in a better place, like mentally throughout the day, which might sound kind of odd. You're like, how do you do that through a morning routine? But I've been picking up a couple things that's as far as like not turning on my phone in the morning and spending at least 30 minutes in my Bible time. And I've actually come up with a Bible tracker in my journal so I can keep track of like what I'm supposed to be reading and the days that I'm like missing or not missing. That way it keeps me accountable. You know, You don't want too many days missing, then you have a problem. That's awesome. Those have been like things, and like just starting off doing things that'll put me in the right mindset before I go into the day. So that's been something that I've been implementing that's been helping me grow, at least for recently. Yeah,
that's awesome. And that's so true as well. There's so many things, like I've been listening to a lot of podcasts recently about habit creating and stuff like that, and every one of them will say, you know, they use the principle called priming, like priming your day. And that all starts in those first half hour of you waking up in the morning, set your whole trajectory of what the rest of your day is going to look like.
Exactly. Yeah, it's been pretty
good. But for me, I would say the Lord's definitely been putting contentment on my heart recently. You know, as you go through life, there's obviously going to be things that don't go the way that you want them to. And, you know, what your expectations are of life always don't meet. You know, it doesn't always align. So the Lord's just been showing me to be satisfied in Him and to really rely on Him when I feel like things aren't going my way. And just, you know, going to the Word rather than to the world. And, you know, just really trying to find the fulfillment in, you know, the promises that the Lord gives you, not the, you know, earthly desires that we often, you know, aspire after.
For sure.
Yeah.
Definitely. That's cool.
But anyways, that's going to be for Bloom Moment of the Week. And we'll jump straight into the topic for today's episode. We're not wasting any more time, guys. So today we're going to be talking about living for heaven. And this is something that someone suggested we talk about. A couple weeks ago, we posted on our Instagram page, you know, give us some topics to talk about. And someone asked us to talk about kind of the end times and Christians dealing with the end times and Christians dealing with living for the kingdom, not for this world. And I think it's a very interesting way to start off 2021 because a lot of us, and because 2021 has just been such a train wreck in a lot of different areas.
Right.
Everyone's like, 2021, it's going to be better. It's going to be different. Everything's going to go away. You know, that's the mindset a lot of people are heading into 2021 with. And I don't want to be like a negative Nancy or a Debbie Downer. But, you know, as Christians, we're not told that this world is supposed to get better. And coming from, you know, the Bible has plenty of verses that talk about the increasing lawlessness that we're going to see in the world. So I guess I'll pass it off to you first. What are some of the, I guess, mindsets that you've seen from the church and from Christians that you would maybe say, like, I don't know if I agree with, as far as heading into the new year and kind of living for heaven, not for this world? Because I think we're a little bit too trapped on trying to save this world and save, the things that we want to do in this world and then go to heaven,
Right. Well, I think everyone's just like, a lot of the perspective I've heard from believers is, if we all just do this one thing, then it'll all end, like it's the people who aren't wearing their masks, or these people that are like, keeping this going, which is just an absolute lie. Like, there is so much more to what's going on than just someone wearing their mask. So I feel like whoever's saying that is just like really naive, because like there is so much happening in this moment. Like, the world is going downhill quick.
Right.
And if you're basing that off of like thinking that someone's not wearing their mask and that's why that's happening, then read your Bible. But it's sad to see that Christians are thinking that way, because instead of like prepping themselves for what's to come,
right,
they're just telling themselves that it's going to be okay, or that we can do something to stop it from happening.
Yeah.
So to me, that's just kind of sad, because I feel like we all need to be prepping for what's coming next, because I even posted it in my caption of my 2020 post, like 2021 is going to have a whole new set of challenges, and it's probably not going to be much different from 2020. Like, we don't know. It could be 10 times worse if we're being honest. Like, we just don't know how things are going to go. So yeah, that's kind of the perspective that I've been seeing from people.
Yeah. But I would agree. And I think, kind of laughing at what you said, we all head into a new year, and I think we do this every year. We're like, this year's going to be so much better than the last.
Right.
Because each year has its own difficulties. Mm-hmm. And it's like, it's so funny that we act like, we always end up looking back when we're stuck in a good year, like, man, I wish we could go back to this year. Or go back to 2016 or 2013. Everything was fine back then. Everything was, blah, blah, blah. Everyone's always reminiscing about the past. Mm-hmm. And then as soon as you get to a new year, it's like looking to the future. It's very convoluted. And I'll be honest, I've struggled with desiring heaven and like desiring living for the end times, because I think, especially for the younger people, like, you have all these things you want to do. Like, I want to be married. I want to, have a family, or do this in my career, or, record more podcasts. But, whatever it is, whatever it is that you want to do in your life, it's hard to be okay with not getting those things. And I think when talking about end times and talking about kind of nearing that, and obviously we don't know when the end times are really going to be. No one knows.
Right.
But what we do know is that each day we get closer. Mm-hmm. And if you look out into the world, you can see a lot of things that kind of make you question and say, where is this world heading?
Right.
So as Christians and as church, we have to be very aware of that and focus on the church itself and building the church and being stronger and making disciples while we still have time, rather than thinking we can save our surrounding area. There was a verse that I wanted to read that just makes me think of it. Shoot, where did I put it? It's on here somewhere. Like when I was talking about the lawlessness, it's in Matthew 24:12. And it says, lawlessness will be increased. The love of many will grow cold. Like, that's just what we're going to see as we go on. That's all we're going to see. So while we still have the time here, and while we still are here, the only reason we are here as believers is to preach the gospel. So
I think we forget 24/7. Like, we're so focused on self. Like, even like 2021 New Year's goals or whatever.
Yeah.
Half of those goals should pretty much be like all centered towards living a life that's honoring to Christ, and like evangelize more, or like do this more that has to do with God. Like, that should be our main goals for 2021.
Right.
Because like, dude, we need to be pumping out the gospel more than ever. Like, now is the time, and like us Christians need to come together. Now is the ultimate time for that as well. But I feel like Christians are just separating from each other. Like, that I've seen that more than anything. There's no unity. It's just everything political has split the entire church apart, I feel like.
Yeah. And I think it's people not realizing, well, it's a couple things. It's one of them being, and I think this is the ultimate big picture, is that the wheat are separating from the chaff, right? During this time, when you start heading towards the end times, you're going to see who the real ones are and who, like, the people that are really strong or want to be stronger. You're going to see those people. Right. And you're going to see the people that are okay with trying to salvage the world and trying to, conform to the world and go that way as well. You're going to see that big gap there in the church. And I think this disunity that we're seeing is starting to show a lot of that. The hills that people are choosing to die on are not the right hills.
Crazy.
And, that's where you can kind of see where people's headspace is at as far as issues.
Taking over.
Right. And as Christians, we aren't supposed to have that fear. And I mean, obviously there are things that, are concerning, and it's not like sin to be, concerned and have some worry, but ultimately we have the Lord and we have the promise of heaven. So there's no real reason for us to be so concerned and so caught up watching the news 24/7, constantly filling our minds with all this negativity that we're seeing from the pagan world.
Right.
There's no need for that.
Yeah, that just shows like where you're at, like spiritually, like mentally, like you're just not in the right headspace that you need to be as a believer if those are the thoughts that are like constantly clouding your judgment.
Right. And because like the bus, keep your eyes on things above, focus on heaven, live for heaven, and when we're constantly worrying about things of this world, people just need to remember this is not our home. And when every new year comes around and people are trying to better themselves, and there's nothing wrong with the resolutions and all that, I'm all for it. But at the end of the day, it's like, this is not our home. We need to be focusing on furthering the kingdom, not furthering our own kingdom.
Exactly.
Everything here is going to fade away, and we need to be focused on what actually matters, and that's heaven.
Right. We're in a tempting time where it's like you have so many temptations of what you could be doing, or like the hill you're choosing to die on, like we just need to like get past all the stuff that's being thrown at us and actually like come together and think about the one thing that's true, which is what we need to be doing as believers. Like none of the other stuff is important. I mean, it might be important in some way, but not where it's tearing apart the church or believers.
Right. And I think a lot of that comes back to desiring God, because there's no real way that we're going to desire heaven if we don't desire God. And, that's another thing that I struggle with sometimes is, being like, yeah, I do want to see God. And I think a lot of times in a year like this, where everything can seem so negative and terrible, you're like, take me now. But do we mean it?
Nope.
Is the real
Never
question.
Really.
Is do we mean it? Because I feel like a lot of times Christians will, and myself included, will say like, yeah, I'm ready to go to heaven whenever. Lord, come now. But a lot of times we'd be like, yeah, but if you could wait till I'm 65, have had a full life of traveling, doing whatever, then you can come.
Right.
So it's like,
it's like when your parents are like, oh, I'm so ready to die. And you're like, of course you are. You've lived your life.
Right? Yeah.
That's how it be.
I mean, yeah, because like I said, especially for the younger people, like it is difficult to be okay with giving up all the things that we think are valuable. But we have to come to a realization that God is just that much more valuable. He's just on a different playing field of anything we can comprehend as value. And we put so much stock in all these earthly things that a lot of it takes up, 95% of our bandwidth. I mean, even when you have a good morning routine and you're in your word, a lot of times it's like we read the Bible for an hour and we're like, all right, good, I'm good to go. And then the rest of the day we spend thinking on
literally everything but God.
Yeah, we spend our time worrying, what are we going to do? What is this like?
Yeah.
It's like, just narrow it in on what matters.
Right. Like you think to Bible times when they pray literally all day long, and we like spend like 10 minutes in the Bible. We're like, yeah, that was a long time. Time to get going with my day. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's just crazy how much time we have in a day that we literally just waste, just completely gone. I mean, think about the amount of hours you've spent watching TV.
Too many.
I mean, dude, that's a
lot of hours. It's a lot of hours right there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah. And I think, obviously another thing too is fear of death.
Mm-hmm.
And with fear of death, especially for Christians, a lot of times there's that other question of, are you really saved? And that's why I think a lot of people struggle with that too. Because with the end times seeming nearer, everything kind of is like, here's where the rubber meets the road. And if you aren't really, for sure in your faith, that can be really scary.
Yeah. And I think that kind of goes hand in hand with what we're talking about like making God a priority and living your life for him.
Mm-hmm.
Because a lot of us as believers have a huge chunk in our life where we're really not doing that, where we're just living our lives the way we want to. And then when we think about end times, we're like you can't be sure in your faith because you don't have that relationship with the Lord right now. Like you're far off. So then the fear is like way escalated. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. And then you feel that pressure like, well, I got to start praying. I got to start reading my Bible.
Yeah.
And it's coming from this other place. Not that, it's necessarily always a bad motivation of fear.
Right.
Because it's
not coming from want though.
Right. It's not coming from the like, I want a relationship with the Lord. It's just like, well, maybe the end times are near.
Yeah,
maybe
I
need to do something.
Bust out the Bible.
It's almost like insurance, right? People
Right.
like, I need to get this insurance. I need to get right with God now. So that way, if the end times really are close, I'm good to go.
Right.
And that's not what it is. And I think it's hard to make that distinction. And you have to be really real with yourself when you're evaluating your own walk with the Lord. And like, am I living for this world or am I living for my actual home?
Right. And I think it's just keeping the mindset that just because you're in a slump, whatever they say, that doesn't mean you're not a believer. You know what I'm saying? Like every believer has their not so good times. You know what I'm saying? Like it's just something you have to work through. But now, like I said, now is the time to get yourself in a right mindset and not doing it out of fear, but doing it for yourself because like you're causing much more pain for your life when you're not focused on those things. Like everything is just worse. Everything sucks when you're not in the right place. And I think all of us as believers can speak on that because we've all had times where we were in a dry spot, and I can tell you that was probably the suckiest time of life that we've ever had.
Everything is just escalated times 10. Like if you're not in your word and you're not right with the Lord, what would usually make you like mildly upset just makes you like obnoxiously upset for no reason. And you're like, what's going on?
Like it's crazy how much peace you have when you just like read your Bible. You know what I'm saying? Like I was just, this last year, there's been just so much craziness and I get frustrated so easily. And so I've made it a habit this time around to be like, okay, I'm gonna read my Bible to like cool off. And like yesterday I had that opportunity, something happened and I was like, nope. And then like me and Nikki read our Bibles together and I was like, wow, the Lord, like you know what
that makes me think about too. And that's what we look to when we think the end times are near as well. Like and that kind of goes back to like people trying to save the world. And it makes me think of like with this whole pandemic, everyone's like, well, when the vaccine comes out, we'll be all good.
We need a whole episode.
And yeah, I think Aaliyah needs to join us for that one.
Yeah.
But it's just, we think that us humans, are going to randomly think of something that's going to stop the biblical prophecies from happening. And it's like, I don't care if you're going to take the vaccine or whatever, you do you. Not me, but like a vaccine or, whatever you look to that you think is going to solve the world's issues. So that way you can continue living your life and not have to think about it. It's like, instead we need to be like, okay, I see what's going on.
Control.
Right. And it's like realizing that the Lord's in control. And the only real thing that's going to solve these issues is understanding that you have no control. Yeah,
it's like we're just in like such denial. Like you're like reading your Bible, like, yep, clear as day, that's going to happen. It happens. You're like, no,
right.
It's not going to happen. Like,
yeah,
it's just retarded. I don't know why we do this. You know what I'm saying? We need to get a grip, people.
Yeah, it's bad. I guess, and that would make me ask, like, what would you say would be some things that would help people look to or like kind of shift their focus a little bit and start really kind of embracing the end times in a way, because that's where you can really find that security in your salvation, where you're like, yeah, I am okay with the end times potentially being right around the corner because I know where my security is, and that's in the Lord. What would you say would help people
Right.
kind of fix their eyes on the Lord and really desire living for the kingdom rather than living for this world here in 2021?
Right. Well, I think just basics, obviously praying and being in your word and getting your relationship right with the Lord, because when those things happen, then you just feel secure in that you're trusting God with what's coming up next. And
Yeah.
also just using that like I was kind of saying before, taking all of those anxieties and things and bringing it back to God so that you can get that peace, so you're not worrying about those things, like
Yeah.
you'll just feel so much better. Like, I can just tell you, like,
Yeah.
it is a heavy burden carrying all that stuff on your back and not taking it to God. Like, I often think of people who aren't believers and I have no idea how they're
Yeah.
alive. Like,
Yeah.
I would have died by now. You know what I'm saying? Like, how are you carrying that burden? You don't, as a believer, you don't have to, but you're choosing to. For what purpose?
Right.
To make yourself miserable, apparently.
Yeah.
So that's a starter.
That's a great point too. I mean, you have to put yourself in the shoes of people that don't have eternal life secured for them. And it's like, you really have, that should fill you with an overwhelming sense of not only thankfulness and appreciation for what the Lord has done in your life, but really make you say like, yeah, this doesn't matter. What matters is me going to that person that doesn't have security and telling them what I have, because they can have it too.
Right. And I think another thing to think on is just, you don't deserve to just have this long life. Like, everybody, y'all, we be blessed, my guy, blessed to just have a day on this earth and be chilling.
Every breath that we take is stolen.
Exactly. So stop acting like, oh yeah, I have 1,000 years, I'm just gonna live my tiny little life happy and it's just gonna be great. Like, dude, you are blessed, and you need to realize that. So that also means being like, God can take this away from me any moment, and that's okay. Getting that in your mind will help you prepare for that in times. Because, dude, you know what? It is okay. He can take that away at any time, and that is perfectly just.
Yeah, and I mean, if you just look at the Bible, look at situations like Job and stuff, you never know what your life is going to bring, and it's not if trials come, it's when.
Yeah,
so we need to
seriously.
stop living this preventative lifestyle of like, keep all this things away from me, I'll do this and that to like curb trials and not have to go through. It's like, no, they're going to happen.
Yeah.
That's a promise. Probably not a promise that we would like to relish often, but it is a promise. It is in the word. It is in the Bible.
Right.
It's not if, it's when.
Mm-hmm.
So I think, coming at it from that mindset, it allows you to be like, okay, I understand. It's okay that I might go through peaks and valleys. That's why I lean on the Lord. Like you said, that burden, something we don't have to carry. That's the beauty of salvation.
Mm-hmm. And I think just like, you just need to be thinking honestly on who God is this entire time. Like, bro.
Bro.
Just
God,
think on
bro.
it. Just think on it, and all those worries will fade away. You know what I'm saying?
God, bro. Hashtag God, bro.
That's just all you need. That's all you need to know. And so with that, we need to be taking that to the people who don't know that, because think about how much they're worried, and they have a right to be worried because their life is coming to a quick stop, and it's coming. Like, we're so worried about the end times and how fast it's coming, but it's like, we have so much to look forward to, whereas these people who aren't saved don't. And so the end times, like, that's like terrifying. That's it. And it's coming really quick for those people because there is nothing past that.
Yeah. And
So-
something I would want to put on top of that to kind of say with helping people look to the Lord is the church. And because I've found an immense amount of just appreciation and thankfulness and so much peace in going to believers, because not only do we not have to bear the burden because Christ takes that on for us, but to be able to come alongside fellow believers that are going through exactly what we're going through, because we're all on this journey and we're all running the race together, for believers. So coming alongside your fellow believer and being like, yeah, I'm struggling with this. I'm maybe not desiring heaven the way that I should be right now. Like, how are you dealing with all these things going on in the world? Like, how are you relying on the Lord during this time? And just really having those heart-to-heart conversations, those real conversations with people in the body, people that you're close with, because that's something else that the the world doesn't have. All the people that are in the world that don't have the church and don't have Christ, all they can go to is their friends and family that are
Their
in the
more
exact
anxious
same place
friends.
as them, and they're just bouncing all this negative ideas and ideology and theology off each other, rather than going to believers, your pastor, your elders, the people that care about your souls, and having them build you up and say, yeah, we're all going through this together. This is not ideal times. Like, the end times may be near. Who knows?
Right.
Like,
And I really hope that that's what the church is doing, that
right.
these people aren't like, you know what, when the vaccine comes, everything, you know, like, I really hope that the church is taking this opportunity to prepare people for what is in the word, saying, though, I mean, they're studying it. They know, they know what's coming, you know?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And I would say, like you said, they're studying it, and we should be studying it too.
Yeah.
If you aren't in your word looking for what those signs are going to be and what the Bible says to look out for and how we should be acting during those times.
Literally at the start of COVID, I started Revelation. I'm not even
Which, you know what? I was a little bit sad because when I first started going to my church, they were going through Revelation, and then the pandemic hit, and then we stopped going through Revelation because he wanted to wait till we could meet in person because he didn't know how long it was going to be. So then we ended up just not going through it, and I know he's planning to get back into it, I think in February. But it was like, we need to stay in Revelation, like stay right here.
Exactly.
Oh man. But yeah, we need to be in the word. We need to be understanding exactly what is going to be thrown at us. And then at the same time, just being like, yeah, Lord, you say this is what's going down. Like, I'm ready for it because, you know, I'm living for my real home, not this temporary home.
Right.
Yeah. And that about wraps up our topic for today, but we're not done. We're not done yet. We've got a new segment, and it's Table Talk with the Bloomers. That's what we've dubbed you guys. You guys are the Bloomers. We're Bloomers, and anyone who listens to this show, you guys are all Bloomers because we're all growing together. And on this segment, Table Talk with the Bloomers, we will be answering your guys' questions. So we put out a little poll on our Instagram page with some questions for you guys to ask us. And we're going to answer them right now. So make sure you guys leave a question on the end of every episode. So that way on next episode, you can potentially have your questions answered. You can find out a little bit more about us or ask us anything that you might want to know. It can be anything random, from what our favorite color is to what we think about a certain topic, or anything in the world at all. So we're going to jump right into it. The first question we got is for both of us. And that is, what is our favorite TV show / movie?
There's like so many options, but I feel like just something I know is probably one of my favorites because I've watched it like 3 or 4 different times would probably be Dance Academy for my show, just because I feel like the dancing is like really good. And I don't know, why the judgment here? You've never watched it. It's a good show, and the movie is good as well.
It's a good show.
As a dancer, I can just appreciate it, you know, and it's cheesy, but it's good.
Okay, at least you admitted that. That's good. You said that was your favorite TV show and favorite movie?
It's probably not my favorite movie, but it's probably my favorite TV show.
Okay.
Yeah.
If I had to say my favorite movie, I would say either Inception or Dark Knight. I could watch those anytime.
Okay, Christopher.
They're just great movies. They're just great.
They are good movies.
Dark Knight never gets old. I could watch it any day. And if I had to say a TV show, that's a tough one. Walking Dead's really good, but so is Peaky Blinders. So it's a tough race, y'all. And then for our last question of Table Talk with the Bloomers, it was more directed at me, but I'm going to put it back on you after. But they asked what I was looking for in a girl. So I'm going to keep this short. I'm going to keep this sweet. Obviously, Christian. Obviously, there has to be some attraction there. And then, you know, as far as like characteristics, someone that isn't scared of commitment, someone that, you know, values the, you know, what dating is supposed to look like, that's dating for marriage, someone that's, you know, serious about that. And then I feel like all the other stuff kind of just falls in line with that.
I feel like I'm surprised you didn't say something.
What?
I'm going to speak for you. Someone who like gives effort. Cause man,
well,
I be feeling like you you carry a lot because you're just a really nice person.
Thank you.
So maybe just for me, I'm like, I need to see somebody.
You know what? The reason I say that is because I feel like for someone that's really intentional about relationships,
and they'll be giving that effort.
Then, you know, they come at it with the same mindset that I'm coming at it with, and that's, I'm 110% right here to make this work in any way that I can. So that means, you know, sacrifice means effort, means, you know,
being nice.
Yeah, I don't expect anyone to do anything that I don't expect myself to do. So, I mean, that's the way that I kind of look at it.
Yeah.
So when it comes to relationships, I think that's really the number one thing. It's all about the mindset. Because you can have all the externals. You can be a nice person. You can be really pretty. You can be all these things. But if you don't have the mindset of biblical dating, biblical for marriage, all that, it doesn't really matter much. But I'm going to turn that back on you because I'm not answering that by myself. Before you, because you're married already, what are you looking for in a man?
Nikki, I'm kidding. I think for me, my main emphasis was on someone who is just really kind.
Yeah.
And I feel like, I don't know, I feel like I've like had experiences with people where I just felt like I was like taken advantage of in a way. Like I'm very like overly nice even when I know that that person is not giving me the same back, but I will just keep trying because like I want to like love that person, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So like I felt like I was like, oh, I need somebody who like finally like makes me feel that way, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So someone who's just like really genuinely really kind. Same.
It's the end times coming out of Ashley as we speak.
I know. Someone who's genuinely kind and just someone who is mature. You know, and guys, it's real hard to find, especially as like a young girl who wanted to get married, like an 18-year-old girl. It's like, obviously I'm not going to date some like 35-year-old man at 18, but I want to get married. So like trying to find a man who was like 20 and mature was quite the struggle. But like Nikki was like a rare
it's the
guy.
same with girls and guys too, because like I mean, I'm 21, and finding someone that's my age that thinks about relationships and thinks about marriage in that way too there's not a lot
just
of people out there
young,
like that.
Yeah.
And not to say like young people are like dumb or whatever, but their process is like, oh, I'm young. Right. You know, that's what they're told is like, oh, I'm young. And obviously we're going to rabbit trail about this. But when you're told you're young and you're supposed to act young, act like a kid, you have your whole life, they don't think about marriage.
It's like the boys will be boys.
Right. And it's the same. With girls will be girls, boys will be boys. And they take that till they're 25. And then that's when you start to see the people that are like, oh, yeah, maybe I do want to be married. You know?
Yeah.
So... before we rabbit trail on, we'll cut it right there. Thank you guys for submitting your questions. Make sure you guys leave more questions for Table Talk with the Bloomers for next episode. Thank you all for tuning in for the first episode of 2020. We're happy to be back. We're happy to be recording. Make sure you guys subscribe for weekly episodes, and we will see you all on the next episode.